Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us for today's WiCyS webinar. With us today, we have SentinelOne presenting on the topic of understanding cyber threats. Before we get started, I wanted to do a brief introduction to the WiCyS organization for those of you who are not familiar with us. We often go by our acronym WiCyS, as in We Sisters, because that is exactly what we are, a global cyber sisterhood. We are a 501c3 with over 5,800 members in 70 countries. We're the premier organization with global reach dedicated to bringing together women in cyber. Our mission is to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. All of our programs and initiatives are made possible by our supporting strategic partners, such as SentinelOne. We have our professional affiliates, student chapters, volunteer committees, mentor-mentee program, Job Board++, member forum, and so much more. You can view our training programs and initiatives on our website at WiCyS.org to learn more about ways to get involved within the WiCyS community. And a special thanks to all of our WiCyS strategic partners. We owe all of our wonderful initiatives to our strategic partners. Our Tier 1 partners being AWS, Battelle, Bloomberg, Carnegie Mellon University Software Engineering Institute, Cisco, Fortinet, Google, Intel, Lockheed Martin, Meta, Microsoft, Optum, Sandia National Labs, and SentinelOne, who's bringing us our cybersecurity awareness webinar today. And just a reminder to ask questions. You can put them in the chat box and the presenter will get to them at the end. Please ask away. We have the expert here with us today, and I look forward to hearing from you in the audience. And also, if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to the WiCyS newsletter at WiCyS.org to stay up to date on upcoming WiCyS events and additional Cybersecurity Month awareness webinars. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Claudia to get us started.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm so excited to be here today and to support this organization. I'm a woman in cybersecurity, and I've been in cybersecurity for the last decade or so. So I'm so excited to see a lot of people here. So I am gonna go and do my presentation, and today we're gonna be talking about the cyber threats and understand a little bit more where I said some terms that I'm pretty sure that you have heard, and in like in a very basic way what I said and how they can affect our organizations, right? So who I am, I've been in IT for more than 20 years. I've been in InfoSec for the last 15 years. I am a security engineer here in SentinelOne. Before that, in my previous lives, I was an advisory manager in Deloitte, and I also worked for the state of Texas for almost 20 years in different agencies and different schools. And I was also the deputy CISO for the state of Texas. Yeah, that's my name. There's a lot of, letters after my name, like CISSP, certifications and all that. But truly who I am is this person, right? Since I was very little, I always wanted to know how the things worked. And if I can push it, like at that little kid there, right? If I can push it, even if it says not push it, I will do it. And I'm saying this because curiosity is one of the main actors, main actors for the hackers, right? So it's a very, a very thin line between hackers and people in security, and how the curiosity goes there. How do they can do it? Why they can do it? And sometimes, like in my previous life, sometimes I have had people that they do things, and I said, like, why do you do it? Because I could, right? If we leave the door open for them, they're gonna do it. So, but let's understand a little bit more on this. So I would like to go like terms, right? We hear what is a vulnerability, what is a threat, what is a risk. And every organization, I think, more than putting all the technology, all the, rules or, policies or anything for security, I think that the main goal of every organization should be assess the risk. What is the real risk for that organization? It could be a threat out there, but there is no risk for you. So how can you do that? So vulnerability is something that is missing, that it's a hole in your environment and your server and your system, right? The threat is that actor that it can have potential access to that vulnerability. And the risk is the likelihood of that happening, right? So you can have a high risk, a lower risk, and how can you do that, right? So you have a threat, you have a vulnerability, and a consequence. Where is it, right? Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's reputational, and what is the risk level for that? So let me give you an example. Um, so imagine that you're leaving your house, right? And you leave your house and you don't lock the door. So that could be a vulnerability, right? Because you're leaving the door unlocked. Now, but maybe there is no risk because nobody saw you leaving that door unlocked. But if there is someone outside in front of your house looking at you, and in a car, right? And they see that you leave the door open. That person, that one could be a threat, right? Because they're seeing your vulnerability. They found the vulnerability. Um, so your risk is high, right? But let's say that person is in a police car. So then your risk goes low because maybe the policeman is not going to go in your house even if it's unlocked. Now, if the person is in the back seat of the police car, the risk goes up. So that's how you measure your risk and how the vulnerability and threat goes in play. I hope that this analogy helps you and to understand a little bit more what I said. So let's talk about threat, right? So there is the threat is the potential damage that it could be, right? That I can do and exploit that vulnerability. There's like a five different types of threats: the internal, the external, the adversarial, environmental, and accidental. The internal, it might be someone that is an employee that is disgruntled, or somebody fire him and he's gonna leave, or they delete everything in your organization. That could be a threat. Um, External, it can be something that is coming from adversarial, right? That they're doing phishing, that they're sending malware, that they're doing a denial of service attack whenever they are trying to access your system and the system cannot get more requests and it shuts down. So those type of threats. Adversarial is sometimes they work on a goal, right? This is when we see a lot of crimes between two countries, or maybe they have or maybe even like for altruism, right? Or they want to they're in against a rule that I just passed, or a law that they not agreeing with, and they want to do something to make sure that they're being heard, right? So that's adversarial. That's something that is an organization on the other side and they have a goal. Environmental is just natural disasters, right? Tornado, a flood, all those are also threats. And if you remember what I said in the previous slide, maybe like in certain places in the country, some they have more potential, or their risk is higher to tornadoes or to flood more than in others, right? So it's all about the likelihood of that happening. And accidental is like like maybe a coder that is developing an application or something, it made an error and now they have a vulnerability in that system. So those are the top 5 threats, and we're going to talk about a little bit more on that. So the crimes that we see on the cyber space are the same crimes like 100 years ago, right? Is the same. Is only we're adding the name or the pre-name cyber to them. Now it's cybercrime. Now it's cyber terrorism, cyber espionage. They are the same, right? We dealt with harassments before. Kidnapping now is, or not kidnapping, but ransomware, like in another way. So now it's cyber ransomware. Prostitution, right? Drug traffic. All those type of crimes are the same crimes, but now is a potentially more available and faster because they're on the cyber. Terrorism is the same thing that they did before. Now they are doing it in the cyberspace. And espionage, this just power up the potential, right, for them to do more and to do it quicker. Um, so those are the top 5 FBI cyber most wanted that we have here. But again, is the same crime as a new channel. So let's talk about the attack. The attack, they have a goal, they have a method, and they have a vulnerability, right? So that is why I want to talk about the vulnerabilities before. So the goal is, they have different goals. Like I was mentioning, maybe some others, I had that in my previous, one of my previous jobs. We had an organization that they were trying to attack all the state agencies because there was no law against bestiality. And so this group was not, they were thinking that it was not, fair that we didn't have any law on like that. So they were trying to make that clear. So that was the goal, right? The method was they were trying to do a DOS attack, which is a denial of service. And vulnerability, well, thank God we didn't have many agencies that they had these vulnerabilities, right? But some of them, they had some vulnerabilities that they could do the attack. I think that I have some questions. I'm gonna look at all the questions at the end. So let's talk about the key trends, right? What are the top 5 attacks that we have been seeing in the cyber space? So the top one is the ransomware. Supply chain, now is digital supply chain, and I'm going to talk about that. Information stealers, cloud centricity. I mean, we are now, everyone is like, even this webinar, right? Everything is online, is on the cloud. And vulnerability exploits. All of them, they have vulnerabilities, but in the last one, I'm going to talk what they do with the vulnerabilities. So ransomware. Ransomware is still is going on, is increasing. 35% more or less is extortion operations, right? Were made up. 107% has increased from 2020 to 21. And those are the things that we know, and those are the ransomware attacks that they were reported to the to the police or to the law enforcement. There are so many others that they might have had the ransomware and they pay and nobody knows about those, right? So these are the ones that they were recorded. So ransomware is still a high impact, and it's a easy way to make money for them. So there is a website, the dark website that you can go, anyone can go and say, hey, you know what, I want a ransomware code. You don't even need now to be like a real coder or developer to create a ransomware. You just go there to the website, request a piece of code, and if you're successful doing some damage, that organization that they do the code, they get like a commission. So now we are we, the security people, we are working against like big organizations, right? Where ransomware is malware as a service. So you just ask for the code and they give it to you for free. It depends on the success that you have so that they get some money. So we see here some of the different fields that the ransomware is going after. So the top one is the manufacturing, right? Financial services, healthcare and financial services, and special. They have different a very important information that they need to protect. So, and technology, right? Technology is because they want to get through the technology that they sell or that they give to another people, they want to access more environments. So these are the top ones, but that doesn't mean that your organization or the environment that you work on is not targeted. So what's next, right? What can we do for the ransomware? We can build some security strategies. We can implement, training about the ransomware, what we do with that. We can also have monitoring, services for that. In endpoint solution, right? So that they can detect some of the tactics and techniques for those type of attacks. And one thing that the law enforcement and security people always said: don't pay ransomware. Do everything prevent to a ransomware, but in case that you are and you are not, you were not prepared, don't pay for the ransomware, because we're just giving more, power to that industry. So the second one is supply chain, and what I mean with this, in early 2020, hackers broke into an application that is called SolarWinds. SolarWinds is to enumerate all the network devices in your network, in your environment, and like any other, right, like Microsoft or like Dell or, well, Microsoft or any other application, they have updates. They broke into the code and they had an update, and in the update it was the malware, and they were able to affect like 33,000 organizations or customers that SolarWinds had. Another example is, I don't know if you remember, there was a big one for Home Depot and Target, right? Some of them, they were not exactly Target had the breach or Home Depot had the breach, but it was the third party vendor. So that's the supply chain. Somebody that is supplying any type of service to different customers, they're very subject to attacks. And this has been increasing more and more and more. So what we can do as a customer, as an organization, we can need to integrate audits just to make sure who's your third party vendor, how many, how much access do they have, um, and identify. Sometimes we give access to our systems to third party vendors, and we never take those accounts out. We never expire those accounts. So there are orphans accounts there that hackers can find and use them and access our systems. The third one is InfoStealers, and this is where you get like a lot, emails or texts saying like, oh, you win a lottery, like, oh, you win a ticket for something, and and nothing happened to your phone or nothing happened to your computer, but in reality is getting all the information that you are putting in the system. So it's stealing your information, right? One of the top ones here is the Red Line and the Raccoon. Red Line were very popular, saying that you won like a Tokyo, ticket, and that we have a lot of people that the they wanted to go to the Olympics, right? And they got that. So there is another one. Uh, like we all know, I guess, that we have Chrome, the browser. There is another one that is called Chromium browser, and it works and it looks exactly as Chrome, right? But what it does is gets all the information and all accesses that you have to different websites, to your bank accounts and everything. So it's always like that, right? Like it's very similar to something. It looks very real, but it's not real, and it's just getting your information. So here's like the top ones. Again, the red line was very, popular with the Tokyo Olympic ticket. And then we have another one that they're also like either now is more and more also mobile, right? Mobile text that you have, and you sometimes you don't even want to, and you just open the text, and you are opening the link, right? And just your finger was fast enough, faster than what you're thinking, and you open the text and click the link. So Taurus and Raccoon are very, known by that. I mean, what we can do, be aware, right? And this is where I was telling you, like Chrome versus Chromium browser. Just make sure what you are downloading is from the right website. Sometimes we just Google something, we want an application or something, and we download it from a website that is not the real one. So just be aware. This is more on your side, and be aware of what you're downloading and what you're clicking on. Cloud centricity, right? So since COVID, we all know, right? Everyone went to work remotely. I think that it says some of the statistics is like 60% of the people is still like doing remote work after COVID, um, and only 18% is going to go back. So we are going to stay remote at least 50% of the population. So that's also giving, the cloud is more and more, applications have been developed now to be on the cloud, and so many other things, right? So we're using a lot of the cloud. Now we're using Google, Docs, or whatever is your preference, but it's everything on the cloud. So that's one of the things that they're trying to access and also hack. So what you can do is audit and test for cloud misconfigurations, right? Access to the cloud. You need to make sure that that everything is closed down. Remember that you need to give the least privilege access, if you can, to any people. If they don't need access to certain applications, don't give it for free, right? So try to go the least privilege access. And of course, identify all of them. Do multi-factor authentication, right? Don't just username and password. I mean, we know that is not enough at all. And sometimes even like MFA, like the multi-factor authentication, it depends which one are you using. So try to put your multi-factor authentication on your bank accounts, on your Gmail or any email that you're using. Nowadays is more normal that we're using multi-factor. So try to implement also on your personal things. And the last one, this is, I mean, it talks about the vulnerability, and we have been talking about the other four, they have vulnerabilities. But, whenever you hear from Microsoft or from anyone, right, any other um, company, organization, that, hey, we need a patch, even like iPhone, right, Mac, Apple, that we have a new update, and sometimes it's just an update to make it easier or wherever. But sometimes those updates are because they found a vulnerability on their systems. So whenever we want to go and download the new vulnerability to find to patch it, the hackers go and find what is that vulnerability about, right? This what you're seeing here is like a cell and sell and buy from vulnerabilities and selling the exploit. So we have people, like I told you, right? There are some organizations that there's like a malware as a service that you can go to a website and get the code. Also, you can go to a website and say, hey, give me the exploit, or how can I do some damage and some harm in this vulnerability in a specific. So if you see in the top one, this is for Microsoft Exchange server. That's an email server, right? It's an email system, and we have 9 people that they want to buy the exploit. They want to buy the code to do harm to the systems, to the Exchange server. We have 4 people that they're already break the code and they can do damage for that vulnerability, and they're selling the code. So this is what we see, right? And in the real life, it's a lot of, mafia, if you want, like an organization on the back about ransomware, malware, vulnerabilities, and just to do some harm. So what we can do, patch, right? Patch and always update your systems. And you can have also like another solution if this is for your work, your job. I mean, you can have another system that they can do threat intelligence. It's not so much about an update, but also how the endpoint or your computer is behaving. So what we can do, we need to identify the threats. Who is that threat for me? What who and what represent a threat for me and my organization, right? What vulnerabilities do I have? We need to make sure that we know our vulnerabilities, because if we don't know, somebody will, and it's not going to be in a good way, right? Try to reduce your risk. Not all the vulnerabilities, not all the threats are applicable to you, so try to know what is your risk. And of course, mitigate the consequences, right? Try to either put like a layers of security, maybe policies, maybe training, maybe some technology, but you need to do a different levels of different layers of security in any security program. Even if you have the best technology in place, always it has to be administrative. You need to have different layers. So make sure that you have like an ecosystem, a cybersecurity ecosystem. And this is, I think this is from, I think that is from Apple. But we need to know our own vulnerabilities. If we don't know, just be curious. Remember, be curious about what is happening in your environment, what are the holes that you have, so that you can protect them and be prepared. I conclude with this. If you have any questions, I'm gonna go here. I think that I have one question. So it says that, is there any list of all threats and vulnerabilities? I know this depends on the individual, company, branch, region. Yeah, there is some uh, many threats and vulnerabilities. There is a list for sure. But again, it depends, right? Like a threat, it could be, like I was mentioning, if it's environmental, maybe, they are, tornadoes or something. That's a threat that is not applicable to everyone. Or like I was mentioning, also the attack that they did to, some state agencies, because they want to, they want some laws that, and against something, but if you're not in a state agency, well, you were not applicable for that threat, right? So it depends, right? It depends on your organization, basically. But remember, there are 5 threats, 5 different type of threats, right? So it was internal, external, adversarial, environmental, and accidental. Start with those 5 and try to identify which ones are in for your organization, right? What are some tools that Sentinel? I think that I had another one, but I think that what are some tools that Sentinel use for assessing vulnerabilities and risk? would Nessus be a sufficient tool for that? So Nessus is a list of, it, it gets all the vulnerabilities for the endpoints, right? Or for all the other, for the endpoint servers and computers. SentinelOne protects the the endpoint. So it's a little bit different, like SentinelOne has more like an endpoint. Sorry, I was reading another one. But SentinelOne is anti-malware, anti-ransomware. So in is really cool because it doesn't use like in updates or patches, or I mean it does, right, upgrades to the tool, but it is more than anything AI and behavioral, right? So it's very different approach to how do they do it. Nessus is going to help you to get all the vulnerabilities on your endpoint. So a little bit different, but you can have both, and you can SentinelOne also gives you like the vulnerabilities on your system, but um, it's a complement. It can be. I think that I had another one. IoT. What can I say about IoT? So nowadays we all have, systems in our in our houses, right? In our houses that are listening all the time. We all know that Alexa, is, or even Siri, or is always listening, and it is true. So those things happening, I mean, are happening. It depends on how you use your technology. Um, but also you have now fridges that they listen. So I think that one of the things in what I do in my house is I have another network in my house. I have a Google, fiber or wherever, but I created another network in my house, and only certain, IPs can, connect. If you don't have that technology, or you cannot have another, network in your house, try not to connect so many, right? And also you can tell Alexa to disconnect or to not hear. So just if you get some intelligent, like smart devices in your house, research how can you turn it off. I think that I have. Can services like Dropbox and Google Apple Drive be trusted? Do the MFA, right? They can be trusted. Dropbox is getting a lot better. Google, yeah, for sure. Apple Drive, do MFA. I'm not against cloud. I mean, I am pro cloud, right? I mean, we're going there. We just need to make sure that we do whatever we can. Just don't rely only on your password. And again, right, you're gonna hear this. Maybe you have heard this so many times. Don't use the same password, right? Even if you change a number, even if you change a capital letter or whatever, don't use the same one. And another thing that is very important for the passwords is the length is better than the different, capital and in numbers and all that. Some of them are requirements already, but the longer your password is harder to be hacked. Yeah, so I'm being asked like, are there free MFA tools for consumers? Yes, we have Google MFA, right? Google MFA, you can download it, and it goes to your phone. Is a button or wherever, and it depends. If sometimes it's just like, is it you? Yes or not, or you can put a code. So yeah, those are a lot of you know um, free. So how does MFA reduce the risk of unauthorized entry into systems? So username and password, and then the third one. So you need to put the number, and the number is getting from another system. So that's the multi-factor authentication, right? So you have more than two. ways to authorize your entrance. So I'm Claudia Escobar. Yes, what is your birthday or what is your number or whatever, right? So you put your username and password, identifying yourself, and then you get like a number from let's say Google Authenticator, right, or MFA. You get a number, and then you need to put the number in the system. That number changes, right? It's not always the same. It changes every 30 minutes or in every minute, so it's never going to be the same. So that is why you can reduce the risk, because it's not the same. The number is never the same. Your password can be the same, your username can be the same, but that number always changes and synchronizes with the Google Authenticator. So it's a third way. It's kind of like the third password, right? It's another factor that you need to authenticate. So it's something that you have, right? It's different. So I think that I don't have any more questions. One of my biggest concerns is data over retention. I think many organizations do not properly destroy data when it's not longer needed. The more data that is retained unnecessarily, the more devastating a breach will be. What are your thoughts on proper data retention enforcement? That's pretty good. You are totally right. One of the things is the cycle, right? The data management cycle. So if you are a security person or someone that can implement that, that's very important. It's so much important to have like it's as equal as important to have all the preventions as equal as to destroy that data. Now, there's some, retention for some information that there are requirements, like maybe like health information. They need to keep that data for 7 years. One of the things that I have seen in, when I was a CISO, an information security officer, and we had that type of information, you need to make sure, like if you're on the cloud, you can put that like that you in 7 years, after 7 years, 7 years plus 1 day is deleted, right? So you need to create that type of proper management. They have life cycle management. Definitely, I mean, it is something that it's forgotten sometimes. Like some everyone's forgets how to destroy the data. Um, and if you're gonna keep it for a long time, encrypt it. Send it to a vault. You don't need to have it like a hot data, right? It could be a cold data that if you need it, you can go and get it. But send it to somebody, like maybe to the cloud or maybe to wherever, but encrypt it. Encrypt the data. So I think that that's one of the things that you can prevent accessing that data when it's retained for longer periods. Is cyber insurance worth it? How much coverage is necessary? How does one calculate the appropriate amount of required insurance? The cyber insurance now is required in some um, states for some state agencies. Um, it is worth it. Yeah, for sure. They're gonna have like a retainer for you. I cannot tell you how much coverage is necessary or how does one calculate the appropriate amount. It depends on the information that you have, right? And it depends also like the time that you are retaining that information. So it again, I would be more than happy to help you. I think that I have my information at the end, but it would be more about the type of the organization and the type of data that you have. How much is the impact, right? If you lose that information, what would it cost? It would cost what? Money? Would you have fines? Would you, it would be like reputational? What would it be? So it's all about the risk level and the impact. So that's how you calculate the cyber insurance. Any other questions? So I had to say the SentinelOne after so many years that I have been in cybersecurity. SentinelOne is one of my favorite places for sure. It's really nice to work here. I'm back to my roots where I can be technical again, and I'm so happy. This is what you can see here, like 4.9 out of 5 is in Glassdoor working at SentinelOne. It takes in consideration, time that you have, like the stress that you have, the money that you get, and everything. So it's really good. So just going, clicking there in sentinelone.com careers if you want to know, if you want to join the team. And I know that there is also like some internship programs. So if you're in college and you're about to finish college and you're in cybersecurity, please go and check. So, well, thank you so much. I know we ended early. I hope that this has have helped you a little bit, to understand what we have on the top 5, cyber threats. My name again is Claudia Escobar. Claudia.escobar at sentinelone.com. If you want to contact me, I'm sorry I didn't put it here. You can also find me in LinkedIn. And thank you so much for being here today.